Have you ever watched someone get dismissed as a joke, only to see them rewrite history seconds later? At a Navy SEAL sniper evaluation, elite operators had been missing extreme distance shots for 9 straight hours. Frustration hung thick in the desert air. Then they called forward a 19-year-old trainee, pale and slight, boots still clean. The room erupted in laughter. Seasoned snipers turned away, already mentally checked out. But what happened next left every single one of them speechless. From which city in the world are you watching this video today? If stories like this move you, consider subscribing. The Barrett M1207 was handed to him like a punchline. The target set at an impossible 3,147 meters through heat distortion and shifting wind, and the kid never said a word. The desert wind cut across the Naval Special Warfare Training Facility in Coronado at 0547 hours, carrying the smell of gun oil and exhaustion. 9 hours into a joint sniper evaluation exercise, the mood on the range had shifted from competitive tension to something closer to defeat. Elite shooters from SEAL Team 3, Marine Scout snipers, and Army Special Operations had been rotating through extreme distance shots since before dawn, and the results were humiliating. Target after target remained untouched beyond 3,000 meters, steel silhouettes shimmering in the heat distortion, like ghosts that refused to fall. Senior Chief Petty Officer Dalton Rask lowered his binoculars and exhaled through his nose. He was 38 years old, weathered by deployments across 3 continents, and he had never seen his best shooters miss this consistently. The frustration was starting to show. Operators sat on ammo crates with arms crossed, some checking their phones, others staring at the horizon as if willing the wind to cooperate. The Barrett M107 rested on its bipod, barrel still warm from the last failed attempt. Gunnery Sergeant Ivor Cullen stepped away from the rifle, shaking his head. His spotter, a young Marine with a notepad full of calculations, called out the miss. Wind shear at 3,200 meters. Another failure. Cullen had the second longest confirmed kill in Marine Corps history at 2,380 meters, and even he could not break through the variables today. The desert was unforgiving. Heat waves rose from the sand like invisible walls, bending light and distorting distance. The wind gusted in unpredictable intervals, shifting direction without warning. Rask rubbed his eyes. That made 6 misses past 3,000 meters. This was supposed to be a demonstration of capability, a chance to push the limits of what long-range precision could achieve under hostile conditions. Instead, it was turning into an embarrassment. He glanced at Lieutenant Commander Bryn Halloway, who stood nearby with a clipboard and tablet, her expression clinical and unimpressed. She was running the evaluation, logging every shot, every miss, every excuse. Halloway checked her tablet, scrolling through the roster. She paused, her jaw tightened slightly. Rask noticed. He had worked with her long enough to recognize when something was off. She looked up, and for a moment, she seemed uncertain. That was rare. Halloway was not the type to hesitate. Rask walked over. "We have one more name on the roster," she said quietly. Rask frowned. "Who?" She hesitated. "Trainee. Came in yesterday from Pendleton. Command wanted him observed under live conditions." Rask blinked. "A trainee? We are burning daylight on a trainee?" Halloway did not smile. "Orders," she said simply. Cullen overheard. He turned, his face already shifting into disbelief. "A trainee?" He laughed, low and sharp. "You are telling me we are wasting time on someone who has not even finished the pipeline?" Halloway did not respond. She just looked toward the back of the range, where a figure was approaching. The operators noticed. Conversations stopped. A few stood up, curious now. The figure came into focus. Young, very young, pale skin, slight build, fatigue still crisp and clean. His boots had not seen enough desert dust to lose their factory shine. He wore no patches, no insignia of reputation, no visible scars. Under the brim of his cap, his face looked impossibly smooth, untouched by the kind of sun and wind that carved lines into the faces of every man standing on that range. Someone muttered, "Is that a high schooler?" A ripple of quiet laughter followed, not cruel but dismissive, the kind of laughter that comes when exhaustion meets absurdity. Rask stepped forward, already regretting whatever bureaucratic decision had put this kid in front of him. "Name?" he asked, his tone flat. The young man stopped, stood at ease. His posture was correct, but there was something else in the way he held himself. Not tension, not nervousness, just stillness. "Trainee Lior Wen, Senior Chief," he said. His voice was calm, steady, and quiet. Silence spread across the range. A few operators exchanged glances. Cullen tilted his head, studying the kid like he was trying to figure out if this was a joke. "How old are you, Wen?" he asked. 19, Gunnery Sergeant, Wen replied. The laughter came again, louder this time, not mocking, but disbelief. 19. The word hung in the air like a punchline no one had set up. Rask held up a hand. All right, let's just get this over with." He gestured toward the Barrett. "You know how to use that?" "Yes, Senior Chief," Wen said. Rask nodded. "Good. Target is at 3,600 meters. Wind is inconsistent. Heat distortion is a nightmare past 3,000. You get 1 round. Spotter is already set. Any questions?" Wen looked at the rifle, then at the horizon, then back at Rask. "No, Senior Chief." Cullen crossed his arms, grinning now. "This ought to be good," he muttered to another Marine. A SEAL standing nearby leaned over. "How much you want to bet he does not even see the target?" $5 says he misses by 200 meters. The mood on the range was no longer tense. It was dismissive. Operators were already mentally checked out, waiting for this formality to end so they could pack up and leave. Wen walked toward the Barrett. His steps were deliberate, unhurried. He knelt behind the rifle and adjusted the bipod with precise, economical movements. No hesitation, no wasted motion. He checked the scope, tested the cheek weld, shifted his body into position. His hands moved over the weapon like he was reading Braille, feeling for alignment rather than forcing it. Petty Officer Cade Oren, the assigned spotter, settled in beside him with a rangefinder and notepad. Oren was professional, competent, but his tone carried the same unspoken assumption everyone else held. This was a formality. "Wind is gusting east-northeast, 8 to 12 knots, Oren said. "Temperature is 91 degrees. You are shooting into a heat mirage past 2,500 meters. Ballistic drop is going to be severe." "I see it," Wen said quietly. Oren paused. He looked at Wen. "You see it?" he asked. Wen did not answer. His eye was already behind the scope, his breathing slowing. Behind them, Cullen approached, still grinning. "Hey, Wen, you ever fire a Barrett before today?" "Yes, Gunnery Sergeant." "How many times?" 47. Cullen blinked. Then he laughed, louder this time. 47? Kid, I have put 10,000 rounds through this platform. You think 47 is going to cut it out here? Wen did not look up. "I do not know, Gunnery Sergeant." Cullen shook his head, still smiling, and walked back toward the group. "This is going to be a miss by a mile," he said. The other operators nodded. A few were already turning away, ready to call it a day. But Holloway had not moved. She stood near Rask, tablet in hand, her eyes fixed on Wen. Something in her expression had shifted. She stepped closer to Rask, keeping her voice low. "Dalton, when did this kid arrive?" "Yesterday," Rask said. "Why?" She hesitated. "He is not on the standard pipeline. His file is flagged." Rask frowned. "Flagged how?" Holloway held up the tablet. Rask leaned in. His eyes moved across the screen. His eyebrows lifted. "That cannot be right," he muttered. "It is verified," Holloway said. Rask looked back at Wen. The kid was still adjusting his scope, calm and methodical. "Why did no one tell me?" Rask asked quietly. "Because you would not have believed it," Holloway replied. Oren leaned closer to Wen. His tone softened, almost sympathetic. "Hey, you do not have to do this. No one expects you to hit at 3,600. Just take the shot and we will call it." Wen's eye did not leave the scope. "I am not here to miss," he said. Oren stared at him. There was something in the kid's voice. Not arrogance, not bravado, just certainty. "Where did you train?" Oren asked. "Quantico, then Fort Benning, then here." "That is fast," Oren said. "It was necessary," Wen replied. The wind shifted, then died. Just for a moment, the flags on the observation tower went slack. The heat distortion flickered, but did not disappear. Wen exhaled slowly. His finger rested on the trigger guard. Not inside, not yet. Rask stepped forward. "Wen, you ready?" "Almost," Wen said. "What are you waiting for?" "The window." Rask exchanged a glance with Holloway. She nodded, almost imperceptibly. Wen's breathing slowed further. His body went completely still. The Barrett became an extension of him. No tremor, no tension. And then he spoke. Ready. The range went quiet. Not because anyone believed, but because protocol demanded it. Cullen muttered to the Marine beside him. $5 says he misses by 200 meters. Wen's finger slid inside the trigger guard. He fired. The crack of the Barrett split the air. The rifle bucked. Wen absorbed the recoil without flinching, his body already reset. And then silence. 3 seconds. 5. 8. Oren stared through the rangefinder, his lips moving as he counted distance, calculated travel time, tried to track a bullet moving faster than sound across nearly 4 kilometers of hostile air. Cullen started to turn away, and then Oren froze. His face went pale. His mouth opened. "Holy shit," he whispered. If you have ever witnessed someone prove the world wrong without saying a word, leave a comment below. And if you want to see how this moment changed everything, make sure you are subscribed, because what happened next left every operator on that range speechless. Oren's voice came out barely above a whisper. "Impact! Center mass!" Rask turned sharply. "Say again?" Oren looked up from the rangefinder, his face drained of color. "I said impact, clean hit, center mass." The words did not register at first. They hung in the air like something foreign, impossible to process. Then the range erupted, but not with celebration, with disbelief. Cullen spun around, his grin gone. "Bullshit. Check it again." Oren did not move. "I am looking at it right now. Steel is down. 3,600 meters. Rask grabbed the rangefinder from Oren's hands. He pressed it to his face, adjusted the focus, and stared. The target silhouette was flat on the ground, a single impact, center mass. His jaw clenched. "Jesus Christ," he muttered. Holloway was already on her radio, her voice clipped and professional. "Observation tower, confirm target status at station Echo 7. Static crackled through the speaker. Then a voice came through. "Confirmed, target down, single impact, center mass, distance measured at 3,847 meters. The radio clicked off. No one moved. The wind picked up again, rattling the flags on the observation tower. The heat distortion shimmered across the desert like water that was not there. Holloway lowered the radio slowly. She looked at Wen, who was still kneeling behind the Barrett, calm and motionless. "That is a world record," she said quietly. The words landed like a grenade. A few operators stood up. Others remained frozen, staring at the kid who had just done something no one in that room thought was possible. 3,847 meters. That was 2.4 miles. In sniper terms, that was not just impressive. It was impossible. Cullen stepped forward, his face tight. "Who the hell is this kid?" His voice was sharp now, almost angry. Not at Wen, at himself, at the situation. At the fact that he had laughed 5 minutes ago and now had no idea what he was looking at. Holloway did not answer immediately. She handed Rask the tablet. He took it, his eyes scanning the screen. His expression shifted, hardened, then softened. He looked at Wen, really looked at him, like he was seeing him for the first time. "You are the Quantico ghost," Rask said. Wen stood up. He brushed the dust off his knees, his movement still methodical, unhurried. He did not speak. Rask stepped closer. "The simulation scores, the classified evals. That was you." "Yes, Senior Chief," Wen said. Cullen moved forward, his voice rising. "What simulation?" Holloway glanced at him, then back at Rask. He scored 97% accuracy in the Naval Special Warfare Long-Range Predictive Combat Sim. At distances no one has ever tested in real life. Command fast-tracked him because they did not believe the data. They thought it was a system error. Rask handed the tablet back to Holloway. "It was not," he said quietly. "No," Holloway replied. "It was not." The operators began to shift. Some exchanged glances. Others stared at Wen like he was something they could not categorize. A statistical anomaly. A ghost in the system. And Command had sent him here to see if the numbers were real. One of the SEALs muttered, "How old did you say he was?" 19, Oren said, still staring at the target through the rangefinder. 19. The word echoed across the range. It sounded different now, not like a joke, like a fact that did not fit. Cullen approached Wen slowly. The grin was gone. The dismissal was gone. He looked at the Barrett, then at Wen. "How did you know the wind would drop?" he asked. Wen met his eyes. "I did not. I just waited until it did." Cullen exhaled. He nodded slowly, almost to himself. "That is the only right answer," he said. He extended his hand. Wen shook it. "I was wrong about you," Cullen said. "You were not wrong, Gunnery Sergeant," Wen replied. "You just did not have the data." Cullen almost smiled. There was a difference between arrogance and confidence. Lior Wen did not need to prove himself with words. The Barrett had already done the talking. Rask stepped forward, his tone quieter now. "Wen, why did you not say anything? Why did you not tell us?" Wen looked at him. His expression was calm, almost neutral. "Would it have mattered, Senior Chief?" Rask paused, then he shook his head. "No," he said. "I guess it would not have." The operators began to stand. Slowly, one by one, no applause, no cheers, just silence, and something else. Respect. The kind that does not come from rank or reputation. The kind that comes from witnessing something undeniable. Holloway stepped forward, clipboard in hand. "Exercise is suspended," she said. "Data is being verified by command. If confirmed, this will be submitted to Naval Special Warfare Command as an official record." She looked at Wen. "You just made history, Wen." "I just did." "My job, ma'am," Wen replied. Rask placed a hand on Wen's shoulder. "You earned this?" "Thank you, Senior Chief," Wen said. But the story did not end with the shot. It ended with what happened next. Holloway walked back toward the command tent, her tablet in hand. Rask followed. Cullen stayed near the Barrett, staring at the distant target like he was still trying to process what he had just seen. The other operators dispersed slowly, some heading toward the vehicles, others lingering near the range, talking in low voices. Oren remained beside Wen. He did not say anything at first. He just stared at the kid, trying to reconcile the image of the pale, 19-year-old trainee with the person who had just erased a world record. Finally, he spoke. "Where did you learn to shoot like that?" Wen did not answer right away. He looked at the horizon, where the heat distortion was still shimmering. "Quantico. Then Fort Benning. Then here." "That is not what I mean," Oren said. Wen turned to him. "I know," he said quietly. 2 days later, the data came back. Naval Special Warfare Command verified the shot. 3,247 meters, single impact, center mass, clean kill, the longest confirmed sniper shot in United States military history. The report was classified at first, but word spread quickly. Within hours, every operator on the base knew. Within days, the story reached sniper schools across the country. Within weeks, it was being studied in tactical journals. A briefing room at the Naval Special Warfare Training Facility. Rask, Holloway, Cullen, and several senior officers sat around a table. Wen stood at attention. A rear admiral, late 50s, decorated uniform, reviewed the documents in front of him. He looked up. "Trainee Wen, your shot has been confirmed and will be submitted to the Department of Defense as the longest confirmed sniper kill in United States military history." He paused. "Do you understand what that means?" "Yes, sir," Wen said. The admiral leaned back in his chair. "You are 19 years old. You have no combat deployments, no active duty experience. And yet, you have just surpassed operators with decades in the field." He paused again. "How?" Wen did not flinch. "I do not think in terms of records, sir. I think in terms of variables: wind, temperature, humidity, ballistic trajectory, Coriolis effect. If you account for every variable, the shot becomes mathematical, not miraculous." The admiral nodded slowly. "And you believe anyone could have made that shot?" "No, sir," Wen said. "But I believe anyone willing to wait for the right variables could have." Rask leaned back in his chair. He almost smiled. "That is a humble answer, trainee," the admiral said. "It is an honest one, sir," Wen replied. The admiral closed the file. "You are being fast-tracked into advanced sniper training. You will skip the standard pipeline. You will be assigned to a SEAL team within 6 months." He stood, extended his hand. "Congratulations, Wen. You have earned it." "Thank you, sir," Wen said. Outside the briefing room, Wen walked alone through the compound. The sun was setting. The range was quiet now. The wind had died down. The flags hung limp on the observation tower. Rask caught up to him. Wen, hold up. Wen stopped, turned. I wanted to apologize, Rask said, for not taking you seriously. No apology needed, Senior Chief, Wen replied. Yeah, there is, Rask said. I have been doing this for 20 years, and I got comfortable. I thought experience was the only thing that mattered. You reminded me it is not. Wen nodded. Experience matters, but so does discipline, and patience, and respect for the shot. Rask extended his hand. You are going to be one hell of an operator, Wen. They shook. I will do my best, Senior Chief, Wen said. He turned and walked away. Rask watched him go. The kid moved through the compound like he was already part of it, like he had always belonged. The Barrett M107 rested on its stand in the armory, barrel still faintly warm. The shot that had broken the world record was already being analyzed, dissected, studied, but no one could replicate it, not yet, because the greatest shots are not the ones that make noise. They are the ones that change everything, and Lior Wen had just changed everything without saying a word. The operators who had laughed were no longer laughing. The ones who had dismissed him were no longer dismissive, and the ones who had doubted were no longer doubting, because they had witnessed something no one believed possible. A 19-year-old kid with 47 rounds of experience had just erased a record held by the most decorated snipers in the world, and he had done it with one shot. If someone you know has ever been underestimated and then proved everyone wrong, share their story in the comments. And if you want to hear the final chapter of what happened to Lior Wen, stay with us. Because the record was just the beginning. 6 months passed. Lior Wen was no longer a trainee. He was a full operator, assigned to SEAL Team 3, carrying the trident on his chest. The pale kid with the clean boots was gone. In his place stood someone harder, leaner, and quieter. The desert had carved lines into his face. His hands were calloused. His eyes carried the weight of missions no one would ever talk about, but he still moved the same way. Methodical, unhurried, no wasted motion. The range at Coronado looked different in winter. The heat distortion was gone. The wind was colder, sharper, cutting across the compound like a blade. The observation tower stood silent. The Barrett M107 rested in the armory, waiting. But the story of the 3,847-meter shot had not faded. It had grown. Operators who had not been there that day asked questions. New recruits studied the data. Instructors used it as a teaching moment. The shot was no longer just a record. It was a standard. Rask stood on the range, watching a new group of snipers rotate through drills. He had been promoted. His responsibilities had expanded. But he still came out here when he could. The range was where everything made sense, where variables were clear, where discipline was rewarded. He checked his watch. Uzzo's 600 hours. The sun was just starting to rise. Holloway approached from the command tent, tablet in hand. She looked tired. "Morning, Dalton," she said. "Morning," Rask replied. She stood beside him, watching the shooters. "How are the new ones?" Rask asked. "Green," Holloway said, "but willing." "That is a start." Rask nodded. He glanced at the tablet. "What brings you out here?" She hesitated, then handed him the tablet. "You need to see this." Rask took it. His eyes scanned the screen. His expression shifted. "When did this come through?" "Last night," Holloway said. "Command verified it this morning." Rask exhaled. He handed the tablet back. "Does he know?" "Not yet," Holloway replied. "Are you going to tell him?" "I think he already knows," she said quietly. Wen was in the armory, cleaning his rifle. The room smelled like gun oil and metal. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. He moved through the process with the same precision he brought to everything. Disassemble, inspect, clean, reassemble. No shortcuts, no compromises. The door opened. Rask stepped inside. Wen looked up. "Senior Chief." Rask walked over. "At ease, Wen." They stood in silence for a moment. Rask watched the kid work. "You have been busy," Rask said. "Yes, Senior Chief. How many deployments now?" 3. Rask nodded. "And you are still here, still standing." "Yes, Senior Chief." Rask leaned against the workbench. "Wen, you remember the shot?" Wen paused. His hands stilled. I remember, Senior Chief. Good, Rask said. Because it is still being studied, analyzed, replicated, and no one has come close. Wen did not respond. He went back to cleaning the rifle. Rask continued. Command got a request last week from the Department of Defense. They want you to demonstrate the technique, publicly, at the International Sniper Competition next month. Wen looked up. Why? Because they want to prove it was not a fluke, Rask said. Because they want the world to see what we already know, that you are the real deal. Wen set the rifle down. He met Rask's eyes. I do not need to prove anything, Senior Chief. I know, Rask said. But they do, and so do the operators who still do not believe it. Wen was silent. Rask leaned forward. You do not have to do this, but if you do, it will end the debate, permanently. Wen considered this, then nodded. I will do it. The International Sniper Competition was held at a military range in Virginia. Operators from 12 countries attended. The best shooters in the world, SEAL teams, British SAS, Canadian JTF-2, Australian SASR, Russian Spetsnaz. Each one brought reputation, experience, and pride. The competition included multiple events, close range, mid-range, extreme range. The final event was the one everyone came to see. A single shot. Maximum distance, no retries. The stands were full. Military brass, instructors, media, observers from allied nations. The atmosphere was charged, competitive, electric. Wen stood with his team, waiting. He wore standard fatigues, no decorations, no fanfare, just another operator. But everyone knew who he was, the Quantico ghost, the kid who broke the record, the one they came to watch. Cullen was there, so was Oren. Both had been invited as observers. They stood near the back, watching Wen from a distance. Cullen shook his head. Think he can do it again? He asked. Oren did not answer right away. Then he said, I do not think he knows how to miss. Cullen smiled. Yeah, me neither. The competition began. Shooter after shooter stepped forward. Clean shots at 2,000 meters, 2,500 meters, 3,000 meters. The crowd reacted to each success. Applause, nods of approval, professional respect. Then the extreme range event began. The target was set at 3,900 meters, farther than Wen's original shot. The wind was inconsistent. The temperature was dropping. The conditions were brutal. The first shooter missed. The second missed. The third landed a hit at 3,200 meters, but fell short of the full distance. The fourth missed entirely. One by one, the best snipers in the world failed to reach the target. The crowd grew quieter. The pressure mounted. Then Wen's name was called. He stepped forward. The stands went silent. Every eye was on him. He walked to the Barrett, knelt, adjusted the bipod, checked the scope. His movements were the same as they had been 6 months ago. Methodical, unhurried, no wasted motion. The spotter settled beside him, offering wind data, temperature readings, ballistic calculations. Wen listened, nodded. Then he stopped listening. He was reading the environment now. The way the flags moved, the way the heat rose, the way the air felt. He breathed, slow, controlled. His body went still. The Barrett became part of him. The crowd held its breath. Rask stood in the stands, arms crossed, Holloway beside him. They did not speak. They just watched. Cullen leaned forward. Oren did not move. Wen fired. The crack of the Barrett echoed across the range. The bullet left the barrel at 2,800 feet per second. It traveled through shifting wind, temperature gradients, and atmospheric pressure changes. It covered 3,900 meters in just under 4 seconds. And then it struck. Center mass. Clean hit. The target fell. The stands erupted. Not with polite applause, with shock, with disbelief, with awe. Operators stood. Military brass exchanged glances. The media scrambled for cameras. Wen lowered the Barrett, stood. His face was calm, neutral, like he had just completed a routine drill. The announcer's voice came over the speakers. Confirmed hit. 3,900 meters. New competition record. Rask smiled. Holloway shook her head, almost laughing. Cullen turned to Oren. Told you, Oren said. Cullen just nodded. The other competitors approached Wen. One by one, handshakes, nods, quiet words of respect, no jealousy, no bitterness, just recognition, because they had all just witnessed something rare, not just skill, but mastery. After the competition, Wen stood alone on the range. The sun was setting. The wind had died. The Barrett rested on its stand, barrel still warm. Rask approached. "You did it again?" he said. Wen turned. "Yes, Senior Chief." Rask smiled. "You know what this means?" Wen shook his head. "It means you are not a ghost anymore," Rask said. "You are a legend." Wen did not smile. "I am just a sniper, Senior Chief." Rask placed a hand on his shoulder. "No, Wen, you are the standard." They walked off the range together. The observation tower stood silent behind them. The flags hung limp. The target, 3,900 meters away, still bore the single impact. Center mass. Clean kill. The shot would be studied, analyzed, replicated. But no one would forget the 19-year-old kid who started it all. The one who never asked for recognition. The one who just waited for the right variables. The one who proved that legends are not always forged by those who expect them. Years later, instructors at sniper schools across the world would tell the story. The kid who was laughed at. The trainee no one took seriously. The shot that erased the record. And the silence that followed. Because the greatest achievements are not the ones announced with fanfare. They are the ones that speak for themselves. Lior Wen never needed permission to make history. He just needed one shot. And sometimes, that is all it takes to change everything. The Barrett M107 was retired to a display case at the Naval Special Warfare Training Facility. A plaque beneath it read, 3,147 meters, trainee Lior Wen, the shot that redefined the possible. Operators walked past it every day. Some stopped, some read the plaque, some just nodded, because they knew. They had been there, they had laughed, and then they had witnessed history. Wen continued to serve, quietly, without fanfare. He completed more deployments, trained more operators, broke more records. But he never spoke about the shot. He did not need to. The Barrett had already said everything that mattered. And the operators who stood beside him, the ones who had once doubted, now stood with respect, because they had learned what Lior Wen had always known. That precision is not about reputation. It is about discipline, patience, and respect for the shot. Have you ever known someone who let their work speak louder than their words? Someone who proved everyone wrong without needing applause? Share their story below. And if you believe in recognizing quiet excellence, consider subscribing. Because the best stories are not always the loudest. Sometimes they are the ones whispered across a desert range at dawn.